country music's Entertainer of the Year, Hank Williams Jr., the son of a legend, becoming one himself. Bob Brown, with an incredible talent's rocky road to success. His father's son, when 2020 continues.
Mother, teacher, athlete, takes quite a special person. But we have proof of that tonight, a telling profile of the person who this year is country music's Entertainer of the Year.
And the winner is Hank
Williams Jr. He's the son of the man who perhaps more than any other person gave country music its popular appeal. You would hardly know it looking at him, but at the age of 38, Hank Williams Jr. has had enough pain to last him a lifetime. A few years ago, Bob Brown brought us his story, and what with Hank Jr. at a new height in his career, we felt an encore was in order.
He is fascinated by guns as his father was.
Hillbillies 2, enemy 0.
Fascinated by the cause and effect relationship between the parts.
Load one, you skip one, you drop one. You drop
by knowing what will happen and why it will happen.
Drop one.
It's a feeling that was difficult to grasp when he was younger because he was swept up in an unpredictable form of cause and effect between the legend his father had left behind and its impact on his life.
If you and your baby have a falling out, call me up, sweet mama, and we'll pressurize out and we'll go honky-tonkin'. Hey, good luck.
Hank Williams Jr. was raised to sing his father's songs, Honky Tonkin', Your Cheatin' Heart, Jambalaya. Songs that still generate $500,000 a year in royalty checks nearly 35 years after Hank Sr.'s death.
Bring it on, do it. We'll go honky-tonkin', honey, baby. We'll go honky-tonkin' round this town.
You know, when Daddy died, in the newspaper clippings it says hillbilly singer dies. But that hillbilly left a hell of a mark.
With 11 million selling records between 1949 and 1953, Hank Williams gave country music a national voice. But he was also addicted to alcohol and the pain-killing drugs he took because of a spinal defect. And he died burned out at the age of 29, when Hank Jr. was only 3½. Williams' heart failed on New Year's Day, 1953. He was in the back seat of his Cadillac on his way to a singing date. And when other country artists remembered him to Hank Jr., it was with the almost religious belief that the qualities in Hank Sr.'s songs had come from his suffering.
It was always, your daddy went through this stuff, and you'll have to go through it. We have to go through these things, you know.
And they were talking about booze and pills and long nights.
Depression. You know, that's a big sport to a lot of people, I think. It was just drilled into me a lot, you know.
Don't play your cheating heart. Lord, it tears us all apart. It makes the whiskey band hellbound.
I just put Daddy's record on the jukebox and get a nice fifth of whiskey and a couple of downers and sit there and try to communicate with him.
Oh, Hank's songs always make us feel down.
Hank Sr.'s troubles were recalled with chilling insight by a friend, comedian Minnie Pearl, who once rode in a car with him just to keep him sober between performances. She tried to ease his nerves by urging him to sing a hymn called I Saw the Light.
And all of a sudden he stopped and looked at me, and of course I'll never forget it because it was such a haunted look he gave me, and he said, "But that's just it, Minnie, there ain't no light."
Hank Williams' gravesite was dedicated in Montgomery, Alabama, a year and a half after his death. The small boy in the hat is Hank Williams, Jr. Barely 5 years old, he had already learned how to tip his hat to a crowd as he rode in a parade after the dedication, followed by a riderless horse representing the father he vaguely remembered.
Just like a blind man, I wandered along, worries and fears I claim for my own.
Hank Jr.'s mother, the late Audrey Williams, quickly became the caretaker of the Williams legend, even though she'd been divorced from Hank Sr. She groomed Hank Jr. to take his place.
You were on the road and you'd started performing.
I was on the road when I was 8. When they came to see an 8-year-old and 10-year-old, it wasn't for his wonderful voice. It was because he was the son of Hank Williams.
They expected the miracle that had happened with his father. But I'm sure he felt, when he'd come out on stage, that he was fighting a phantom because he was fighting the image of his father.
Tonight, Hank Williams Jr., the 14-year-old son, to sing some of his dad's country music hits. So let's have a fine welcome for this youngster.
Goodbye, Joe, we gotta go, me oh my, we gotta go, old hero down the bayou.
Hank Jr. was a country singing idol with a $300,000 a year recording contract by the time he was 14.
Son of a gun, we'll have big fun on the bayou.
Most of his friends were adults. His education came from a tutor.
You're cheating hard.
He was put through the rites of passage on the road.
They would try to give me a drink, you know, when I was 10 or 12. Say, let's get a little Hank a drink here. The old steel players and everything.
Did anybody ever tell you that you shouldn't do those things?
No, the road wasn't like that. I grew up quick.
Did you ever get to the point where you just couldn't function, or were you always able to...
Oh, yeah, I was
make
in the hospital several times. Oh, yeah. Yeah, all the way out. The pills, you know, and the whiskey and the whole thing. I was really rolling in it.
You cry and cry and try to leave.
I thought I was going to die a couple of times, and it scared the heck out of me.
Sleep don't come. The whole night through.
Audiences always knew whether he was doing his father's songs the way they wanted to hear them.
Cheating hard.
And if he diverged too far from what hardcore fans expected, he was often forced into exchanges with hecklers.
Hey, sing, Hey Good Looking. Well, I just sang it, you know, and you were so drunk you didn't hear it, or I'm going to do this other one. Why, you little so-and-so your daddy would have. So, that didn't go over too good. So I bumped one of them.
You thumped
I
somebody?
bumped him, yeah, in Salt Lake City, I think. And boy, that felt good. It was driving me crazy. I had a psychiatrist tell me that, said, hey, you've been taught, you know, live like, act like, be like, sing like your daddy. Your lifestyle's exactly like his, and you're going to be gone too. And I said, to hell with this. I'm not putting up with this crap. And I just left, and I said, bye.
Saying goodbye meant leaving Nashville, moving to Coleman, Alabama, getting a new manager who knew nothing about the music industry, and rearranging his life. He was 26 years old, and he decided to put the other styles of music he liked to use. Blues guitar and Southern rock, and the piano styles of Ray Charles or Jerry Lee Lewis.
Going on down in my hillbilly farm.
You know, you do it, and it's through, and you put it together. It's either a failure or a success. A failure is your fault. Success is your fault. That's a good feeling.
So you were on your way.
Yeah, it was really looking pretty good, and I had gotten this part straightened out, you know, the whiskey and the drugs and the cloning of Hank Williams. So I said, I'll either make it this way, or I'm going to go open that mailbox and get Daddy's checks and do a hell of a lot of hunting and fishing.
But then, as he approached the age at which his father had died, he narrowly escaped his own death. Hank Jr. had grown up loving the outdoors. This trip took him into the Davis Mountains of West Texas on a deer hunt. The hunt was staged from a small cabin campsite with a group of friends, including Montana rancher Dick Willey. Willey was also with Hank Jr. in 1975 on a mountain climb in one of their favorite areas of Montana. It was that climb that nearly killed Hank Jr.
We're crossing this snowfield, about 9,000 feet elevation, and he slipped and fell in the neighborhood of 500 to 700 feet.
You want to stop so bad, but you can't stop. And I'm going down through there, and then there was a sharp boulder up in it, and it did the job right between the old eyes.
You hit it face first.
Yeah.
About the only thing he had left was the one eye. It literally tore his nose off, drove it up through his head, and blew a hole in his forehead, which exposed the brain. And as far as his lower part of his head, his jaws, teeth, gums, they were pretty much ruined.
You know, the doctor said that you've been left here for something. Yeah, he said your brain was out and penetrated with that rock a little. Whatever you want to be, he said, I suggest you follow it, because you talk about people say they've been born again. He said, believe me, you were. You realize how quick time can run out.
Climbed up the Rockies and I swam down the Snake, and I spent winters trapping in the Missouri breaks. This ain't the first time I've been in a jam. I'm from Two Dot in Montana, and I don't give a damn.
In the 12 years since the accident, he has repeatedly undergone corrective surgery. He still wears dark glasses to cover his eyes, and his hat conceals a skin graft over a plate in his forehead. The self-pity is gone, he says. So is his patience with trivial details. And if he seems abrasive because of that, he doesn't complain about what he lost or apologize for what he gained because he is Hank Williams' son.
I got a shotgun, a rifle, and a four-wheel drive, and a country boy can survive. Country folks can survive.
There will be people who will come up to him as long as he lives and say, I loved your father. And I'm sure as he gets older now, Bob, I think he may more and more cherish that, because he will realize more and more what a truly great heritage he had. Hank had charisma.